Doctor, look.
Stand aside, nurse. I'm Dr. Homebrew.
Hey everybody, it's Dr. Homebrew. We're back. We're talking homebrew, and life couldn't be any better if we tried. You know what I'm trying to say, everybody?
Are we trying hard enough?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I've always been taught to be satisfied with where you're at. Never think that you could get any better, because then you won't be disappointed when life just shits on you. I don't know.
Yeah. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Happy holidays. Yeah.
I definitely plan on raising my daughter with this philosophy.
Oh, that
So I
poor
think it's
girl.
going to be a good time.
I'm in kind of a haze here. Like, just when Thanksgiving falls this late and it's all of a sudden just December, like right after it's done.
Yeah.
It's just like we're like mere weeks away from Christmas, and it's like weird.
Yeah,
Short time.
I agree. I feel like I've been waiting for December for a long time. Number one, because I like Christmas. I really enjoy, the lights and getting the tree and doing all that fun stuff. But I also just want to get my presents. Like, I'm excited for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like it's already been December for about a year.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably because the compressed time between Thanksgiving and today at this moment in time right
and
now.
all the rain we're having. It's just like it's just going
yeah.
on and on and on. And like,
I love that. I'm all right with that, dude.
That's good. We need it. Yeah.
You know what the best thing is, though, to me? It's because we're recording this show like December 5th or whatever that is. We are 4th. It's Thanksgiving was late this year. To me, you can't start the Christmas music until it's Thanksgiving Day or after. So
man,
I've been
right.
listening to nothing but Christmas music for like 5 days, and it's just freaking awesome. It is just the best.
I think we started this year before Thanksgiving just because I don't have like the traditional Christmas music, like Burl Ives kind of bullcrap. I have this like some jazz weird shit and some blues and just like a lot of like cool,
Yeah.
different sort of Christmas. Because
too, man.
otherwise it gets boring. It gets stale. It's like, oh, here's Gene Autry with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer for the literal millionth time you've heard it in your entire life. And you're like, okay, I need to stop doing this, dude.
No, you want No Doubt with "Oi to the World." You want some Wham's "Last Christmas." Last Christmas, I gave you my heart, man.
Well, that's true, but what was it? What did you say? The Gwen Stefani band?
The No Doubt with
No
"Oi
doubt.
to the World."
Stop it, Brian.
Oi to the punks and oi to the skins and
No.
oi to the world, and everybody wins.
That would annoy the shit out of me.
That's such a great song, though.
No, it can't be.
I do know that one.
Never heard it. I was never a No Doubt boy.
So
even
much
though they
better
were
than
like,
the Vandals did it initially, and it's such a terrible version when the Vandals did it.
Well, of course.
No Doubt, it's kind of poppy punk, and it's great.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know about that. They Might Be Giants have a Christmas album.
Oh, hell yeah, they do.
It's actually, I mean, it's They Might Be Giants, so what do you,
Yeah.
it's not like amazing, but it's pretty funny every
Yes.
once in a while. Okay, on the show today, we have two beers. Brian Cooper, what the hell are they?
We have an alternative grain beer.
Alternative?
Category 31A.
Grain beer.
They used some rye malt in it. So therefore it is an alternative grain beer because they used something besides barley. And it's an American
Okay.
brown ale base. The other one is just a regular old plain old American IPA, your favorite.
All right. Well, hey, look, I feel like our luck was bound to run out at some point because the past few shows we've been getting a lot of cool Kolsch's and Katarina sours and all this kind of fun, funky stuff. So
I like
I'm okay
IPAs.
with going back to an IPA, mainly because I drink an ounce of it, and then I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
You know what? It might be great. It might not be. Stay tuned and find out.
So you're
That's
not
right.
wasted like usual by the end of the show.
I get so drunk all the time, everybody. Let me tell you about it. No, but we have a good show for you. I'm excited to talk to Steven and Rich. We're going to get them on the phone here in just a second, but I do need to get us to a break real fast. I know we just started the show, but that's unfortunately how things work here. So give me 1 second, everybody. We'll be right back at the end of this break. Hang on.
back to the examination. Now, back to the examination.
All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging on. I told you it wouldn't be that long.
No.
It's easy. Easy peasy stuff. You know what I'm trying to say, guys? Before we get to our guests, I do want to thank our show sponsor, 5 Star Chemicals. You can go to 5 Star Chemicals and learn everything you need to know to make great beer at home, which is, look, spoiler alert, it's cleaning and sanitizing. But what you might not know, Star San is great too, but 5 Star, they are the number one people in the game for cleaning and sanitizing. Star San, the best sanitizer on the market. PBW, the best cleaner on the market. And I use it for like my coffee roasting equipment and washing dishes every once in a while and all sorts of fun stuff. So check them out if you haven't heard about it. If your local homebrew shop does not carry their products, demand it. And if they refuse, then never go there again. Because if you're not carrying 5 Star Chemicals, then you don't know what you're doing. I'm just going to say that right now.
They're good people. They make good products.
Organize a picket. Go outside, demand it. Go on homebrew strike until they get 5-star chemicals.
Is that a new podcast we're starting?
Homebrew strike. Yes, coming soon in 2020 to the Brewing Network.
It's where we fight.
Bare knuckle, mano a mano, 3 rounds in a homebrew cage.
Steven, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, how's it going, man? Thanks for joining us so late where you are. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
So we have an alternative grain beer.
What's that? No.
No?
Yes.
Yes. Brian, why are you confusing me?
Yeah, he's got the, you're right.
Yeah. See? I'm right, Steven.
We've been drinking beer,
we know
so
what
we're
we're doing
baffled
over
and confused.
I wrote the wrong name on the wrong sheet.
It's Brian's mistake. I got it. So do me a favor, man. Tell me a little bit about this beer. What is an alternative grain beer? What did you do here?
So it's a American brown ale made with some rye malt, some chocolate rye, and some crystal rye.
Wow, I didn't know that there were that many versions of rye malt.
Well, you can malt it, so you can do similar things to it that you do with barley malt. You can make a crystal version of it. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Is that something you bought commercially, or did you do this on your own?
No, something I bought commercially. I heard about it and I wanted to try it out, so
okay.
I figured why not?
Yeah, what the hell not? And were you satisfied with it? I haven't had it yet, so I don't know.
I'm pretty happy with it.
Okay, yeah. Excellent. Is that something you're going to be doing in the future?
Yeah, I think I might tweak it a little bit with some of your advice, and I was also curious about the category I should put it in. I'm not sure if it should just go in the American brown ale category or if it should stay in the alternative grain category.
That is always a good question, man. We will answer that for you.
Yeah, we'll give it a shot. We're going to crack open this fresh bottle here in just a second. This is just a dump, right?
That's the same beer, but yours has been sitting there for a while.
Yeah, for sure. So, because I was a little confused because when we said alternative grain, I didn't know what that meant, but it just means rye malt. And there's no two-row in it or Pilsner or anything, right?
No, well, it can have. Yeah, well,
yeah, the base is Maris Otter.
Oh, okay.
It just has to have it in there, yeah.
Okay. All right.
I mean, you can make beers that are entirely,
so it's just it's a brown ale with rye.
Yeah.
And this alternative grain thing threw me, Brian.
I know. I know.
What the hell's wrong with you? All right, let's drink this. Brian Cooper, why don't you start us off here with Steven's brown ale with
American
rye malts, please.
Okay. In the nose, so we opened it. It had a slightly low fill on that last bottle I just opened. We poured the first bottle all the way out. We noticed a little sediment coming out the neck and sticking to the sides there. I don't know. It might be a bottle conditioned beer, or it might be a something that has some sediment of some sort in there that's sticking around in the bottle. But in the nose, I'm getting a chocolatey and a light biscuity malt aroma. Dominates the nose. A medium resiny citrusy hop below that, and some medium low fruity esters. I do get some kind of grainy malt notes indicating maybe the rye in there, but it's not a super spicy nose. And different people might pick up rye different ways. It's it's going to express itself a little differently and play off the other ingredients that are there. So the beer seems clean. I'm not getting any DMS or diacetyl or any acetaldehyde in the nose. Also, it's a bit there's a bit of nuttiness in there too in the malt. So it's a pretty complex nose, and that's nice. I like that a lot. Appearance-wise, it's moderately murky, honestly. Kind of an orangey medium brown colored beer with a very long-lasting, creamy and cream-colored head. Some light lacing, no legs. It doesn't seem like it's a super strong beer, but the head sticks around nicely. I really like that. Just had to knock it down a point for the murkiness. This could be clarified a little bit better, and then it might also change some things in the flavor, especially. But into the flavor, get a pleasant maltiness. Notes very similar to the aroma. Mostly chocolate, some biscuit. There's a little bit of light, kind of caramelly sweet sweetness in there too. There's a substantial resiny hop alongside that. The bitterness is medium. It's just restrained enough that it's not biting into the malt there too badly. It's a pretty good spot. Dry, grainy rye notes are apparent here, kind of medium low, but you can get that kind of chalky, grainy rye thing. I don't always get it as a spiciness, but I've made some rye beers before, and they do have this kind of character to them. We'll talk how much percentage you put in there later, but if you get up to 15-20%, sometimes you can get a substantial kind of spiciness in there, but it's not really spicy. It's just adding some richness, and I like that. Clean ale fermentation. It finishes medium dry. The balance is just slightly to the malt here, but substantially hoppy, and that's fine. It's a clean beer. Enjoy the flavor quite a bit. Mouthfeel wise, it's medium full bodied with fairly smooth mouthfeel. Although there does seem to be a little bit of astringency there. Nothing super biting to me, but it's just a little edge there. No obvious warmth. It is somewhat creamy and mouth filling, and the medium carbonation in there. But yeah, there's a slight little bite in there that was like, oh, okay. There's a little something going on in the mouthfeel. But overall, I'd say it's a very, very well brewed American brown ale with good use of the rye malt. It's adding some complexity here, some graininess. Some might get it as a lightly spicy note, but just kind of that mouth filling and dry grainy note to me. So it does give a aid in the fullness of the mouthfeel. And it's to a point where it's not overpowering the base style here either. So I get it. And, to the question of, wow, should I declare it as an alternative grain beer? I think I would just judge this just fine as an American brown ale. I wouldn't get like, oh, boy, this guy screwed up. He really should have entered it in alternative grain beer, as opposed to the other way around. Someone,
Right.
Well, is it there? Is it not there? It's not. There's so much else going on in the beer, and it accents the style nicely. So, hops are a bit on the high end for the style, kind of like a Janus Brown, but it's tasty for what it is, pun intended. Try to improve the
I get
clarity here. Perhaps back off on the hops just a touch. But I'd say the rye is pretty good where it's at. I don't know if I'd go much north of that. And some of the other little bitingness issues or something, I don't know if the astringency could come from over-sparging a little bit. But there's also some, if there's any odd flavors in there, I don't know. Brian will have some other things to say about it maybe, but it could be coming from the yeast in there, and I think it would taste a little different and maybe cleaner without that in there. So that would improve the beer as well. I give it a 36. I thought it was actually a very good beer. Generally within the style parameters, and able to be judged as an alternative grain beer. and give it a fair shake for that. So, I hope that helps, and we'll love to talk about your recipe too. So.
Awesome. All right, Brian Shaw, go ahead, please.
All right, before I get into my score sheet, quick question, Stephen. Are you in a homebrew club?
I am. The East Bay Homebrew Club here in Rhode Island.
Which bay are you east of?
Narragansett Bay. It's the only bay we have.
Oh, so you're that's in Rhode Island?
It is, yes. Yep.
Oh, wonderful. But maybe I met you at
In
HomebrewCon.
Providence there.
Yeah.
I walked down to that bay.
Yeah, we were at HomebrewCon.
Yeah, that's a nice bay. I walked down there, saw there's like windmills across the bay. You can and some really cool old kind of Cape Cod looking houses down, and I had a good enjoyable walk the first morning I was there.
Yeah, it's a really pretty place.
Yeah,
Thanks for hosting us
It
this
is.
year, that area, and you guys had some really
Yeah.
fun clubs at club night.
yeah. It was a good time. It was my first HomebrewCon, so it was
Awesome.
fun.
All right, so just spoiler alert, I thought this beer was very good also. Aroma, Brian talked about how this was a beer with a nutty aroma. I thought it came across to me like a low to medium peanut butter, which I thought was really fascinating. I liked it.
Peanut butter, okay.
Yeah, and this is not to say I don't like it. I liked it, but I thought it was really interesting that it had like a real, to me, peanut butter nuttiness without having peanuts in it. We get into your recipe, but I'll ask you: did you put peanuts in this at all?
No, I did not. No
Yeah,
peanuts.
I didn't think so. But that was just really kind of a cool thing.
Any other kind of nuts?
No nuts at all in this beer.
Yeah, as a brief aside, one member of my homebrew club, he knows who he is, always jokes, quote, and I always kind of wonder because he claims he's a nudist, and he claims he likes to dip the sack in just a little bit, but I'm just thinking that's going to be dangerous at the best of times, and just completely unsanitary at worst. And I hope that's just a urban legend that he spreads. Spicy rye, excuse me, spicy rye. I get it, kind of a medium level. It's definitely noticeable in the aroma. Get kind of a low to medium hop aroma that to me is also spicy, and I think it blends really well with the rye spice character. Don't get any diacetyl or off aromas. Give that a 9 of 12 for aroma. Appearance, it's medium to dark brown. Hey, it's an American brown. It's the color it's supposed to be. Light brown head. It's tall and persistent. Head's great. It's a little, even in a darker beer, you can tell this is murky from the yeast. The second bottle, so we're drinking from the second bottle right now. It's not quite as yeasty. The first bottle, toward the end, I mean, there was obvious yeast along the entire side of the bottle from pouring that out. And it was,
I poured this one for you, so I was much more careful than you were.
well, exactly. You're just a more thorough and careful person, Brian. That's why your malpractice insurance premiums are so much less than mine. Those Dr. Homebrew Mutual, those bastards are just killing me this year. But to me, I got like a yeasty murkiness to this beer. And we'll chat later about packaging. I wonder if this maybe was either something that came from the bottom of a keg or maybe was bottle conditioned in some way. But there's a little overly yeasty, so I gave this 2 out of 3 for appearance. Flavor. The flavor starts off with dark malt, definitely chocolate focused, kind of some characteristic rye spice. And the rye spice comes across maybe a little too intense for me. Get a low yeast flavor, low hop bitterness. I didn't perceive the hop bitterness as high as Brian did in this beer. I would call it more medium to low, sort of a low to medium spicy hop flavor. It's well attenuated. To me, I thought the balance was toward the malt. Finish was long and malty. The yeast flavor kind of carries over into the mouthfeel. It's not really in terms of the flavor here, but I gave the flavor 10 out of 20. Mouthfeel 4 out of 5. Like Brian, I got a slight astringency out of this. And it was hard for me to tell if that was really astringency or just the spiciness from the rye or perhaps both. But it did come across to me as overly astringent. And that also, to me, might be the yeast. Right, there's enough yeast in this beer that you can get what's called like yeast bite, where the yeast gives you a perceived astringency. I kind of attribute the astringency in this beer more to the yeast than anything else. That's just me. Slight warming, which is fine. Medium body. low carbonation, could have been a little higher. Didn't think this beer was either creamy or like perky / any overly carbonated. But it was, mouthfeel was. I was probably a little generous. I probably should have maybe given this more like a 3 out of 5, but 4 out of 5 was fine. Overall impression was a 7. I really like this idea. I like the idea of taking the rye malt, which has more of a spicy character to it, and coupling it with hops that are more on the spicy side. I think it's a good thought process, and I really like the concept. I think there might be either a little too much rye as a percentage, and I'll be curious to hear what the percentages are, or maybe just a little bit too yeasty as far as making this seem maybe a little too spicy or a little harsh. Next time, would try to either back off on the rye a little or do fermentation and packaging in a way that keeps so much yeast from being in the bottle. But overall, I gave this 32 out of 50. Very good. I enjoyed it, and it's a good beer. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, I tend to agree. So let's talk real fast about the yeasty thing, especially because both guys hit on that. Is this bottle condition, Stephen?
Those bottles are bottle conditioned, yes.
Okay.
Yep. I bottled the 6-packs off before I put it in a keg, and I used the carbonation tabs to do that with.
How long was your fermentation?
3 weeks roughly.
Okay, so plenty of time for yeast to settle out. When you bottled these 6 to send, did you use like a siphon?
No, I used a bottle filler off of. I have fermentation with the spigot on the bottom. Fermenter.
Okay, so essentially, you probably pulled a lot of yeast off the bottom when you used that spigot then.
Probably, yeah.
Okay, so that would explain a lot. And packaging is always so difficult. It's always the bane of my home brewing. I hate it. It's not always a lot. In fact, we were discussing before the show, I was going to bring a beer, but I had keg issues.
Right.
So let's not get into me being a whiny little bitch before the show about my keg problems.
I'll read you the text.
We'll do a dramatic reading.
I was a salty little bitch before the show about my kegging issues. Brian almost had himself some new 2.5-gallon kegs next time we recorded. But the thing when you're packaging into bottles from the fermenter, that spigot is great, but it's right there at the bottom. Depending, I'm not familiar. I don't know your exact setup, but a lot of times that's right there at the top of that layer of yeast, or even kind of in the middle of a layer of yeast. So if you fill from that spigot, you're really getting a lot more yeast into the bottle than ideally you would want. And as much as the siphon is a pain in the ass, and I hate it. I mean, I have the nice metal one. I have the old plastic one. They're both. The metal one is easier to sanitize. They can both be a hassle. And if you're trying to do individual bottles, you got to put a cookie sheet out. You're going to have beer going places, but it sucks. But it's worth using the siphon to kind of hold it up, kind of midway up into that fermenter, so you're spaced apart from that yeast cake. So you're not pulling a bunch of yeast into your bottles.
Right.
So that to me explains why we had a lot of yeast character in this beer. Frankly, I think you probably would have scored, in my opinion, Brian, I'm curious what you have to say. I think you'd have scored 5-6 points higher in this beer if that had been how you'd packaged this.
Yeah, balance-wise, it was really nice and otherwise very clean. So, yeah, that was one of the only gripes. What was your recipe with all those interesting malts?
Yeah, so it's 10 pounds of Maris Otter, 2 pounds of rye malt, 10 ounces of chocolate rye, 8 ounces of crystal rye, and then 8 ounces of brown malt. Was the malt bill.
Nice. Yeah, I made a Janet's Brown with chocolate rye malt instead of the chocolate malt, and it tasted very similar to this. I really liked it. And what hops did you use? I like the resiny hop you got in there.
Yeah, so a third of an ounce of Hercules at 60 minutes.
Hercules? Fascinating.
Hercules, yes. And then 1 ounce of Centennial at 15 minutes and 1 ounce of Centennial at 5 minutes was the hop bill.
Good. good. Yeah, kind of classic American hop.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely.
That's one of my favorite hops. So
There's definitely a spiciness, and I've heard people sort of go back and forth between rye actually having a spicy character or not. I don't know if I've ever had a beer with this much rye in it to definitively say, yeah. I mean, there's something there for sure. I think like what Shar was saying, it could be a lot of the yeast bite is coming through because it is sort of a chalky, yeasty kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think this is more than 20% rye malts in there if you add it up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was more like
Yeah,
30 or 40%.
I think the balance is great. I think the recipe is a good recipe for just throwing it together just to try it out. I mean, I think you have the ratios pretty good, to be honest.
Rye is a huskless malt with a lot of beta glucan content in it. Did you have any trouble sparging? Did you use rice hulls or something to counteract that?
no, so I actually did this one brew in a bag.
Oh,
so
cool.
I didn't have any
Okay.
issues.
No issues.
Excellent.
Nice.
Yank it out. Done.
I'm going to say,
Yep.
I'm going to express what might be kind of an unpopular opinion. I can taste the brown malt. Brown malt is, I don't like it. It's a personal preference. I think that brown malt really is almost overpowering. And even in that big grain bill, I get like now that he's said it, I'm like, wow, okay, there's a little bit of background unpleasantness I didn't like that I would almost attribute to that brown malt.
I wonder if it's amplified with the yeast.
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be.
Because if you have too much brown malt, it can almost be acidic or sharp.
Yeah, you get like a tire rubber soy sauce, almost like a autolyzed yeast from brown malt, and that's just me. That's my palate. Take that for what it's worth, which is just one guy's opinion.
So then I'm saying if there's yeast in suspension and you have that flavor, it's going to be compounded, right?
Yeah, I think so, and I think you just got to be really careful with brown malt. I would even consider backing that off maybe to 4 ounces. It's really strong. That flavor, it's like Special B. A little bit of that malt goes a long, long, long way.
Sure.
There's plenty of malt complexity here. I liked it myself. So
Yeah. Stephen, what about you, man? Do you have any comments or questions or concerns about whatever the guys just told you?
Not really. I think I agree with the packaging situation. It's just bottling is just such a pain in the ass.
How does
Hell
it
yeah,
taste
it is.
out of the keg? Is nice and clear and tastes. Can you describe any differences to what we're kind of describing?
I do. No, I'm drinking some out of the keg right now, and I do get a little bit of that astringent type flavor you were talking about. And even out of the keg, it is still a little murky.
Okay.
So,
Murky with a little bite. Yeah.
What kind of yeast did you use? Did you say, and I just didn't listen?
no, I didn't say Imperial Darkness,
Huh.
which I believe is the Irish ale yeast strain.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that, so I don't know if that's one that doesn't settle out as much. But
That's possible.
It,
Yeah, I don't know
it
either.
could be that that's just not a very high attenuating or a flocculating yeast. I mean, I think it was well attenuating. It may not be one that settles out of suspension real well. So you might want
Right.
to try a different yeast next time that might be of whatever brand you choose, whether it's Imperial or something else. You might just double check on the flocculation of the yeast. Be sure you get like a high flock yeast that will settle out after a week or two.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're marketing the yeast strain for dark ales, calling it darkness literally, and marketing towards making good balanced dark beers.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
I've used it in some stouts and stuff and had good luck with it. But
All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
The ferment seemed clean.
Well, Stephen, if that's it, we'll let you go to bed, man.
all right, guys, appreciate it.
Oh, and wait,
Thanks,
so
man.
real quick, you guys were the guys that won that Melvin's Boil Rumble contest, weren't you? Your club.
Yes.
Yeah, congrats
correct.
on that,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
It was fun partying
Yeah,
with you guys.
we're
out
actually,
there.
we're having the final party this weekend, this Friday.
Oh,
Here in
nice.
Providence. So
Cool.
Well, enjoy it. You guys earned it, and it was fun. Fun being one of the guys that got to judge that thing. So,
yeah, awesome.
congrats.
Yeah, well done,
Thank
man.
you very much.
All right. Thanks, Stephen.
Bye.
All right, guys.
All right, bye.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, it was funky beer, man. Interesting.
I liked it.
Yeah. I liked it as well, man. It was if we could just clean up that yeast character, I would I would really appreciate it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Wow, excuse me. All right,
Yeah.
we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come right back, and we're going to get someone else on the phone with another beer, and we're going to basically just do the same thing we did, but to somebody else. So hang on. This is Dr. Homebrew.
That
We'll be
poor
right back.
bastard.
Labs Customer Club.
I'm sorry to tell you this, but we're going to have to pour you out.
Back to Dr. Homebrew.
All right. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. I got to get old Richard on the phone here. Am I even looking at the right guy? There he is.
He's on our coast, so he'll be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Oh yeah, there he is, right there. Good, he better be, dude. I don't want any of this tired bullshit, dude. You can't be tired when you come on my show. You know what I'm trying to say? There's no sleep. There's no tiredness. I'm the only one who's tired on this show. Nobody else gets to be tired.
No one else.
Uh-uh.
And we've had Rich on before, a couple months
true.
or so ago, I think.
Rich, are you there?
Hello, this is Rich.
Hey,
Hello.
what's going on,
again.
Rich?
Hey, not too much. Hanging out, waiting for you guys.
Yeah. Well, hey,
Yeah.
man, that happens. You know what I mean?
He decided to
Seeing how what the verdict is.
come on in December when we know your beer won't be delivered in 100-degree weather. Is that the MO here?
Yeah, that was great.
So, Rich, you sent us in an IPA.
Yes.
All right. Is this? I'm just gonna take a wild guess that this is not your first IPA you've ever brewed.
It is not.
Is this a recipe that you do often, and you want some feedback, or are you just trying something new, or what's
Yeah, no,
what's about
this is I've brewed this a few times, and never really had high caliber feedback other than friends sitting around drinking and saying this is a pretty good IPA.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Well, you're not going to get high caliber feedback here either.
Might
so.
give you some 40 caliber feedback.
That's right.
Ouch.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a little aggressive,
Some
Brian.
22
Jeez.
caliber feedback.
Yeah,
Nothing
that's not
high
quite
caliber.
as bad. That'll
yeah.
just piss him off.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are more than happy to drink your IPA. Thanks a lot for sending us beer. Couldn't do the show
Yeah.
without you, man. But Brian Shar. Bubba Brian Shar.
All right. So first off, let me ask you the question I always ask. Are you in a homebrew club?
I am not. I'm a lone wolf.
You are a lone wolf, probably on a watch list somewhere. All right, that's good to know. So probably we are now too. Aroma, citrus hop aroma is very strong and very pleasant. Got low malt aroma, kind of to me, kind of a base malt 2-row type of character. Citrus is on the orange side of the citrus spectrum. Some grassiness, but in a pleasant way that's kind of indicative of dry hopping. No diacetyl or off aromas. Give it 10 for aroma. Appearance, 3 out of 3. Very clear. Not crystal clear, but very clear. There's a slight haze, which especially in a beer that's this bitter and probably was dry hopped. I'm looking forward to finding out if I'm correct. That kind of slight haze is pretty standard and just hard to get away from. Color's golden. The head is heroically large and ivory colored. It's persistent, well done. Initial flavor is citrus hop and low base malt, followed by high hop bitterness. Citrus hop flavor is also high. Finish is long and bitter. It's well attenuated. Almost, there's maybe a hint of additional attenuation that could have happened, and maybe a hint of a honey character. Which Brian and I were discussing whether that might be a little oxidation or perhaps maybe not quite full attenuation. But I thought it was still, if it's well attenuated to the point where it's at least like 90+% done, if not all the way. Balance is definitely toward hop flavor and bitterness. It's hop focused without being hop water. I gave this 13 out of 20. Mouthfeel 5 out of 5. Body's medium. Carbonation's low. I kind of was on the fence about giving this possibly a 4 out of 5. Just Carbonation was lower than I would have liked, which is always kind of fascinating to me when you have a really huge head on a beer and low carbonation. It's like sometimes the carbonation just all rushes out at once to form head, and sometimes it doesn't. There's a doctoral thesis in there for someone that knows what they're doing. That was not me. It's definitely warming, neither creamy nor astringent. Again, 5 out of 5. Overall impression, 8. Thought it was a well-done example of an American IPA, which how fast things change. When the guidelines, the most recent guidelines were out, this was an American IPA. Now this is what we'd probably call a West Coast IPA in 2019. It's definitely hop bitterness, hop flavor focused, and clear without being some kind of big haze bomb. Maybe could be slightly more attenuated and possibly a hint more malt character. But I do think overall there's enough malt character in here to keep this from being hop water. Right? The classic knock on the homebrewed IPAs 15 years ago was that there was so much hop bitterness, so much hop flavor, no malt character. It was just kind of unpleasantly harsh, like you're just drinking hop water with no malt. And there's definitely malt in here.
Yeah.
If I were adjusting the malt bill, it might be just a little bit, like you're talking 10, 15%, not like a huge change here. But I thought really an excellent example of what an American IPA should be. I gave this 39 overall, so well done, and thank you for taking us back to the heyday of West Coast / real American IPA.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Brian Cooper.
Yeah, no, that's great. I appreciate it. I had to look up today what the difference between an American IPA and a West Coast IPA.
Oh.
I was kind of stressing. I was stressing that I had it classified wrong, but
No, the difference is about 4 years.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, Cooper. How
Yeah,
are you gonna
so we had
follow
a good fill and a nice hiss upon opening the bottle. I really liked the aroma in this beer. It had a high, pleasant, I got kind of perfumey and resiny tropical hop character up front. It's just bright and clean. And medium-high fruity esters. It's pretty fruity beer. Clean ale impression with a low, bready, cakey base malt in there. But a little, you can tell there's some malt there, a little bit of complexity, but not intense. No DMS or diacetyl. It seems like it's very cleanly fermented there. So good job in the aroma. Medium golden colored beer with fairly good clarity, as Brian said. Pours on medium whitish head that sticks around quite well. Finer and some medium-sized bubbles in the foam stand, but it just stays around forever there. And, hops will do that sometimes.
yeah.
That kind of head is just whoop, and clings to the edges of the glass. Beautiful. So flavor-wise, hops to me and the flavor just came across a little more sharply and coarse seeming than in the aroma, but with similar characters. There's something that's just a little grassy and biting here, and it is substantially bitter. Bitterness, yeah, just it's high, and I guess it's supposed to be high for an IPA if you read the guidelines. So
Right.
I shouldn't be bitching about this,
Yeah.
but just pushed against the balance a little bit to me. And the finish is dry and kind of minerally in a way. If you did some water treatment, it'd be interesting to talk about that. It should have a dry finish, but something kind of chalky in there maybe. I was trying to dig at what I got, and I think I like this second sample a little bit better. I thought I got kind of a lightly stale bread-like character that would hint at some oxidation, but this sample seems a little cleaner to me. It's just there's something a little odd to it that I'm kind of grasping at and trying to dig at what it is.
I get like
this is-
a
do you get
sort
any
of a fresh honey,
honey.
like honeysuckle,
Yeah.
or
It's not really going
like a
towards-
fresh honey, not
Yeah.
oxidized or
Yeah,
old
not
or whatever, right?
Papery, cardboardy.
Yeah.
But,
Not honey in a good way.
Not honey in an unpleasant way, but like you open a fresh thing of like wildflower honey, so
yeah.
or honeysuckle, which I know is not honey, but it's along the same lines of that sort of a flowery, fragrant kind of honey thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's from. I have no idea.
Maybe
I've lost that part of my brain somehow, but
yeah, it could be something too with the fruitiness. It is a pretty estery beer, kind of combined with.
yeah, it could be yeast character and hops and maybe something fermentation wise. I don't know.
And I'm thinking it's like
Okay.
kind of an orangey ester kind of playing off the malt that's there
Mhm.
a little bit. Definitely balanced to the hops though, as an IPA should be.
Yeah.
And they really linger into the aftertaste there. So pretty nice flavor, but it just kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop, and I was kind of grasping at what was going on there. Mouthfeel wise, I thought it was pretty decent for the style, medium bodied, no obvious warmth, not astringent, a little bit of hop bite possibly. Not really creamy, just a nice dry, again with the dry finish, and to me medium carbonation. It stuck around pretty well, pushing up that head. It didn't just fall flat and stay gone. You can rouse it pretty easily. So it's a very pleasant smelling IPA. It just, to me, it felt a little bit flat in flavor, just too grassy and a little bit biting in the mouthfeel as well, with a little bit of harsh hop bitterness. I would just back off the bittering hops just a touch, especially for the kind of the modern interpretation of IPAs. Just be a little careful keeping the O2 out after fermentation, of course, too, and the malt can go from clean malt to honey-like to papery pretty quickly if you get just a little bit of oxygen in there. And super hoppy beers don't always age as well either. So drink it fresh, and that'll help you. We probably had these bottles for a little while, but maybe not too long. But
what's interesting, Brian, is the second bottle. I got more of that honey and honeysuckle and that low oxidation from that than the first bottle. And that's just weird. It's just that weird when you bottle like that. There can be a bottle-to-bottle variance of headspace or whatever.
I did get some variation.
You want to try the third
I
one?
did get.
Sure.
We got it.
But I did think I got a little more of the honey, and I got more malt in the second one than I did in the first one.
We're just gonna keep drinking your beer here. But yeah, maybe.
I wish I had left myself one.
Oh.
Yeah. Recap that thing. We'll send it back to him. No, but maybe I'm just not used to the, as much to the classic IPAs anymore. I drank a lot of them in the 90s, I'll say, but in the 2000s.
Yeah, I tried to moderate that because the original recipe was for my own taste a little bit over the top, and so I kept the amount of bittering hop the same, and it was Columbus, but I went with 30 minutes as opposed to 60.
Yeah.
I will say the carbonation in this is a lot better. Like when you taste it, there's actually like a firm carbonation to this bottle, to the third bottle.
Yeah, the third bottle is more to me like the first bottle. I don't get as much honey as the second bottle.
Well, let's talk about your packaging. How do you carbonate? Are we done with the?
I gave it a 34, so
Okay.
I thought it's a very good beer, and just use a little dialing in, but yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I get in the third
Doing some
bottle
good
that I
things.
didn't get in the other two? A little chlorophenol.
Yeah.
I get a little Band-Aid in this one that was not in the first two.
Interesting. Yeah, that's not good.
Well, at least your wound is covered.
It's super light if it is there, yeah.
What's your bottling process like? Your carbonation. Let's go through all that, and then we'll do the recipe and all the normal shit we do.
Yeah. Okay. So the carbonation is forced carb. And I bottle with a Blickman beer gun.
Okay.
So it should hopefully keep it down, oxidation down a little bit. And I did do I tried to do a oxygen-free transfer on this one, so I didn't. Trying to use transfer methods from my fermenter to the my corny keg,
purging the
trying to
lines
do
and
that
stuff.
Yeah.
oxygen-free.
You know what is interesting is that it does feel like the carbonation just sort of gets into the head, and as the head fades, the carbonation's gone because it sort of mouthfeel-wise tastes like the second bottle did. It's just kind of like not. It's just. It's like all the carbonation leaves.
It's got all these kind
leaves
of
the beer.
pinpoint bubbles that rise and just
I wonder why that is.
I swear there's a doctoral thesis in that for someone. Why do some beers have all the carbonation seem to like rush into the head and then have low carb and others don't? And there's some kind of fluid dynamic surface tension thing going on that no
Hop
one really
oil or
understands. Hop
something,
oils,
yeah.
viscosity. There's a lot of variables, and I think nobody really understands why that is.
That's weird.
Should I
Rich,
shoot
I'll tell
this
you that.
past? Should I shoot this past Palmer?
Yeah. No, I mean, oils would tend to pull, carbonation out of the beer and make it fall flat sooner. But with the proteins and everything in the head, there's obviously something that's holding up this
Yeah.
long-lasting head here. So
That's definitely weird. Well, let's talk about your recipe real fast. Let's do that.
All right. So, I got about a 40% pale 2-row, and I've got 40% Maris Otter. So there's where you're probably getting a little bit of your malt flavor, and I have 10% Vienna.
okay.
Always a nice choice.
Yeah, and 1 pound of just a little bit of dark Munich in there. Threw that in for fun of it. So
Why not?
and then
Yeah.
I put a pound of dark Munich in there.
Wow.
Nice. Yeah, it does a nice job of giving you a little more color without making it dark. I mean, it really improves. It makes this golden rather than just like a straw-colored IPA.
Which is sort of that mid 90s, early 2000s American IPA color, without the crystal malt heavy, weird. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So then my my bittering hop was a Columbus, and I also used that in my dry hop as well. I've got some Cryo Citra. Let's see, what did I have that? I had regular Citra, half ounce of that at 15 minutes, half ounce of Centennial at 15 minutes. And then I had one at Flame Out as well, a little bit of Centennial at Flame Out. And then I went for the dry hops. I did a dry hop at 3 days with some Cryo Citra, some Cryo Simcoe, and my dry hopping was a lot of Citra and Simcoe.
Mm-hmm. Nice. A lot of classic C hops and a lot of classic hops overall there.
Yeah. And an S hop in there.
And the S hop.
Okay, well, I mean, it sounds pretty straightforward to me.
What'd you do with your water? Anything?
There you go.
My water. So I use RO water.
Okay.
And I put a quarter teaspoon of let's see. Yeah, so 3 grams of calcium sulfate to 2 grams of calcium chloride.
Okay.
So I treat my RO water with that, and then I put a quarter teaspoon of phosphoric acid in there as well.
Yeah.
And then my yeast is Barbarian Imperial Organic.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And
Organic.
I did let's see, I can't remember. No, I didn't do a yeast starter.
All right.
Sure.
Well, all right.
Well, that doesn't seem to have hurt. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm always a fan of doing a yeast starter, even with the larger pitches and the newer yeast companies. But that's kind of the thing with Imperial, right? You're supposed to be able to get this canned, like a 12-ounce can of yeast and just dump the whole thing into your wort, right?
Yeah, it's like 200 billion cells in one of those little packets they have now. And,
Yeah.
But I usually do a yeast starter too, and I got in a hurry. And so it sounds like maybe that may have had something to do with what you referred to as under attenuation.
Maybe. Well, that's the thing is it was such. I thought in general, if it wasn't well attenuated, it was really close. And kind of what Brian and I were discussing is it fully attenuated and maybe a little oxidized to give kind of that little honey flavor, or is it maybe just almost like 95% attenuated? There's a little bit of residual sugar, and I'm starting to fall on the spectrum of this just not, this being fully attenuated but a little oxidized.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, I think that ordinarily I would say do the starter, and I still would. But in this case, it doesn't seem to have hurt you.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll always help though.
Now, so the honey flavor, because that seemed prominent in all of your assessments.
Yeah.
Now, I did use a half a pound of melanoidin malt. Would that have added any of that character?
I didn't hear
don't
that in
know.
your recipe, Rich.
You just snuck that one in.
I didn't hear that in your recipe.
No, I omitted that.
You omitted it.
Yeah, I
Weird.
had a half a.
You were too
half a pound
embarrassed
of
to
melanoidin
say.
You
malt as well.
liar, Rich the liar on the phone with us, everybody.
I
Now-
missed that little detail. It was a lie.
It's a
based on
cheap
omission.
malt. That's why.
Yeah, let's
right.
let's give Rich a safe space to come out and
That's
talk
true.
about his melanoidin malt. Not everyone feels safe discussing
I
this.
swear that's it. That's
Yes.
the only thing I
Yeah.
admitted.
I don't know. Would that is that a thing? I mean, half a pound? You said.
I would get more like Bach like kind of characteristics from if you used a lot of that, than like honey or anything like. Really,
Yeah, I agree with Brian. That's I'm not really getting a lot of flavor contribution from that.
Maillard products,
Yeah.
not honey.
Yeah.
Bread crust
Like
or
complexity
something.
a little
and-
bit, but
Yeah.
no, or German.
I don't
style.
think
Yeah.
it helped you or hurt you. I don't think it's really noticeable.
You could leave it out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, leave it out next time. See what happens.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the only way to
probably.
figure it out. Yeah.
Sometimes the simpler recipe is the better one.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Rich. Well, we'll let you go, man. But I appreciate you sitting in beer when it's not 96 degrees on my porch.
Yeah. No, I am curious if you guys had another taste of the Vienna malt. I know you're not going to review that on the air, but for the Vienna lager.
I don't think we had any more left. I might somewhere. I don't know.
Oh, I sent you 3 of those too.
Yeah. Well, I
Nice.
think we hand them out because whenever we have leftover
will.
beer for the show, I just give them to the guys after the show. I don't bring it home. So.
I think I have some in my
All right.
fridge still.
All right. I was just
Oh,
fishing.
Brian Shar has it. Brian Shar still
I
has
think
it.
I may have one in my fridge.
Okay. See, I knew. I don't take anything home. I have too much beer at home, so I like to
Well, what happens
spread
is
the wealth a little bit.
Yeah, you give me these show beers, and then
Yeah.
about 2 months later, I'm like, oh, that's a Dr. Homebrew beer in my fridge.
That's right.
But
That's
at
right.
least it's being stored cold.
Yeah.
We
Well,
can-
try
we
it.
can
All right.
Locate that and break it out of jail and taste it somewhere.
Yeah.
That's a
That'd
good
be
plan.
interesting.
Future show.
All
Yeah.
right.
Tell me if it's amazing.
Okay. Thanks for sending it.
All right, Rich. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Again.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
All right, dude.
I appreciate
We'll
it.
talk to you.
Have a good
Bye.
night.
Bye.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, not too shabby, huh?
Not too shabby.
Well done. I thought it was excellent.
Some both
And it was-
two
hey,
very good beers altogether on this show.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
At least your beer will taste good if you send it to Dr. Homebrew.
That's right. Well,
as far as you know.
we'll see. All right, is that it, Brian?
I think so.
I think we got everything. I think we're done. All right, let's get out of here, everybody. This has been Dr. Homebrew. Thanks a lot for tuning in. If you're listening live for whatever reason, if there's nothing else going on in your life and you're sitting in your mom's basement when she's in the closet next to you, if you know what I'm trying to say.
You're wearing your PJs, playing Dungeons and Dragons. by
Jason,
yourself.
why don't
You're
you
wearing-
get a job?
You're
Why are
wearing
you
your
in the
mom's
basement?
PJs. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Well, no, actually, we have to judge more beer, so it'll probably be another 20 minutes or so. And then we'll be right back. So hang on, everybody. This has been Dr. Homebrew, and, thanks.
Stand aside, nurse. I'm Dr. Homebrew.
Hey, it's Dr. Homebrew. Thanks a lot, everybody, for sticking around for another great episode of Homebrewed Beer. We got it for you. Woo!
Is there anything better than listening to guys drinking beer?
And I can't think of one thing that would be better than this show right now.
Nor can I.
And that is because of our sponsor, 5 Star Chemicals. They make it possible. They make this show possible. Honestly, if they didn't want this show to happen, it wouldn't happen. So thank you very much to 5 Star Chemicals. You can go to 5starchemicals.com to learn about everything you can do to make great beer at home, which is cleaning and sanitizing. This is the spoiler alert that we talk about all the time, but 5 Star make the best chemicals to do that with. So check them out, 5starchemicals.com. If you see them around at any events, which they do a ton of, thank them, please, for us. Thank you.
Those carboys clean and sanitized.
Yep. Don't mess with 1-star chemicals,
No,
2-star
no,
chemicals.
no.
That's just nonsense.
Don't do any of that.
Yeah.
We have a weird show for you today, guys, but I'm pretty excited about it, mainly because those of you longtime listeners, thanks, Bev. Thank you very much for doing your job. I really appreciate it. Do you want to lie down for a second? You want to rest? Yeah.
She wants a participation award.
As producer of... What are you, then? You're just a lady who pushes a button?
I'm a camera switcher.
You're a camera switcher. Yeah, but
Keep it on Brian.
you're something that starts with a C and an S.
What?
Camera switcher? It was a... Never mind.
This isn't some kind of weird sour hour thing like where we're pretending Beverly's here. She's actually here. She's right here right
No.
She's
now.
a cartoon
No, I'm
sideshow.
actually
What?
here.
Yeah, you're actually here. I don't know why.
I'm here. Either.
Because you're a C word, S word. You're a camera switcher.
You're lucky you added that S.
Anyway, we have some homebrew from Dr. Homebrew Brian.
I had some stuff in my fridge, and we had somebody get sick.
So we have some
Not
recovery
from drinking that
beers.
beer, I hope.
Yeah, no, not from drinking Brian's beer, of course not. And then I was at the store, oddly enough, today, and I happened to find some Guinness Milk Stout. It's called Over the Moon, and it's from their brewery in Beemore, in Balmore. And we talked to the guys at Guinness several months back on the session, and they said they were producing some other stuff. I'm shocked that it made it out this far. I've never had it before. I have no idea if it's any good, but I thought we could bring it in and maybe not necessarily do a commercial calibration, but at least talk about it and see how the boys over at Guinness are doing with the mulled milk stout, because they're definitely not doing proper Guinness out there in Beemore. They're doing sort of other styles. So
That is a cute little box.
it's a cute little box, right? It's blue, light
It's a friendly,
blue.
happy little moon on it.
You know,
Yeah.
the cow jumped over the moon, hence
Yeah.
cow jumped, cow's milk stout. I bet this is something
Yeah.
you get pretty much around the country. If we're getting this at like the grocery store in the Bay Area, 3,000 miles away, I bet this is pretty much national distribution. I mean,
That's what I
do
think
you
too.
think?
Yeah, for sure. So if you're listen to our broadcast about it, our podcast here, and then if we like it, go out and get it. Or if we don't like it, go out and get it anyway too. Who cares? Just go buy it.
Sweet stout is a fun style. I like. It's a really interesting balance to that style, and the classically called milk stout.
So they are not different. Sweet stout is a milk
Sweet stout, milk stout, interchangeable, but yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
just happens to be what the BJCP calls it now. Sweet.
It's sweet. Oh, but it used to be just a milk stout.
It's got milk sugar in it, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Fun fact, Jason, you may
Lactose.
recall from BYOB TV that Team 2.5 Men brewed a milk stout, one of the recipes that we won early on in the show at the 21st Amendment, toward the end of the BYOB TV run, as kind of our prize for winning something like an episode 7,
I don't know.
episode 8.
Literally don't remember. Yeah.
It's haze to me as well. I watched that whole series.
It's been like 8 or 9 years ago. I
Yeah.
remember it because I got to brew with Zambo and other teammates there at the little SF 21st Amendment pub. And it was a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
563 2nd Street.
Hey,
Yes.
my friends are on Interwebs TV. Cool. Local access.
I have that show somewhere on DVD.
When are you going to reboot? Let's
Oh,
do a
me too.
reboot.
I would love to.
We'll help
You know
you
what
out.
we need is we need an actual producer I mean, because we made no money on that show. That money had no budget and not bad. Wasn't a shot at Bev. It was like for the TV producer.
Well, only Justin cares about that. We'll just promise him we'll make $1 million, break even, and we'll just have some fun.
We made a fun,
it was a good time,
entertaining
though.
show for like $12.
Yeah, something like that, man. Every time we wanted to do something, like we'd come up with a game. Like I would come up with games, and Jay'd be like, "Okay, we can't do that." I'm like, "Okay, well, how about this? Yeah, let me run it, but no, we can't do that."
The censors say no.
Yeah, it was very hard coming up with games, but
I think pull your penis out on TV. Just sorry,
not on Coffee 20.
I'm trying to remember like of the different stuff. Like I know for that cooking challenge, I really wanted Rocky Mountain oysters, but we couldn't find them anywhere in the Bay Area. And then the ones we had to ship in, and we couldn't afford to pay for it. And it's like to me, that's funnier.
That would have been.
That would have been hilarious, but I even forget
ingredient.
what the ingredients were now for the cooking competition.
Like I remember some, but we had to go to Safeway and get something. But we brewed in the finest parking lots of the finest breweries and homebrew stores of the Bay Area.
It's true,
and that was very evident.
Yeah, it was weird, man, but God bless. All right, so basically what's going to happen is if you're a fan of Brian Shaw, you get to hear a lot of him today.
Hell yeah, you do. And who's not a fan of me?
Not balanced by Brian Cooper or myself, because I'm not going to say another word for the rest of the show.
I'll chime in sideways once in a while. I might even remember my recipes. We'll see.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah, so we're going to take a quick break, and then, like I said, we're going to come back. We're going to drink Brian Cooper's Homebrews. We're probably going to run through both of them just to talk about his performance and how they are, style-wise, maybe not necessarily an entire BJCP sheet like we do all the time, but who knows? It might just be more conversational. And then we'll tackle this Guinness Sweet Stout. What do you guys think? Sounds like a good time?
Let's do it.
I think that's awesome.
All right. Well, you have to say that. Both of you have to say that. I don't know if you knew that. All right. Hang on, everybody. We'll be right back.
Now, back to the examination.
All right. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. So, Mr. Cooper, what are we drinking right now? What's the very first homebrew of yours? We've done homebrew from you on this show, right?
Yeah. My sours and my weird stuff.
Okay, but
this is a grapefruit. I'm calling it a grapefruit blonde ale.
Grapefruit blonde ale. What category is this, please?
It's a fruit beer.
Fruit beer.
29 in the most recent guidelines.
29A if you want to use a letter with it, but it's just 29.
Who doesn't? Let's be honest. All right, Brian Shar.
All right, I'm giving Brian Cooper his Dr. Homebrew performance review for the Dr. Homebrew Hospital to make sure he can retain his privileges here at the Hospital of Homebrew Diagnosis and stuff. And I believe that you pass your review here, Mr. Cooper. The Grapefruit Blonde I really like this beer a lot. Aroma, the grapefruit was prominent, both the fruit part and the zest, and like a little bit of the pith. I don't eat grapefruit a lot. It's really tasty, but you cut that thing in half, and you got to do a lot of cutting, and you have the fruit, and inevitably you kind of cut that bit of the fruit out, and you get a little bit of that white pith. And that's partly what makes eating grapefruit, as opposed to drinking the grapefruit juice, like really fun. Plus, like if you're a kid, you just sprinkle like a shit ton of sugar on that stuff, and that's pretty awesome. But that combination of the fruit and the pith is really part of the experience, and you get that I get that in the aroma a lot. It's not just the fruit; it's a little bit of that white grapefruit pith right next to the fruit. Malt is low, kind of some base malt low in the background. That's fine. The grapefruit dominates. No off aromas. Don't get any acetaldehyde or diacetyl or anything. Give it 9 out of 12. Appearance, 2 out of 3. It's interesting reading the guidelines. The color is golden. The color is pretty dark for a blonde. I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to have to give Brian a 1 out of 3 for appearance because that color is too dark. When you look at the guidelines, a blonde can be golden to dark gold. I did not know that. So it's nice to it's always nice to have a refresher. Blonde is not a style that is super popular these days, or is the thing that comes up in competition a lot. That's why you have guidelines and you write them down, so you can go and ground test this stuff, ground truth against some sort of known standard. So color is fine. Low and persistent head, which is fine. It was more hazy than I really would expect a blonde to be. Probably due to the grapefruit pectin or something, but I ended up knocking it off a point to 2. Flavor, initial flavor is definitely grapefruit. You get the fruit and the pith. It's dominant, and it's also pleasant. Get malt is low. Oh, you have a fruit fly in yours? Yeah. We got a lot of fruit flies in the studio tonight. Not that it matters to you at home, but yeah, I've been kind of using the pen top. I can give you a pen top here. Kind of using that little thing to dig fruit flies onto my beer here. Yeah, it's probably a pretty good idea. Malt is low compared to the grapefruit level. Balances to the fruit. It's well attenuated. Finish is fruity and also bitter, as well as long. I don't think hop bitterness is super high, but it's perceptible and it's there. And I think it marries with the grapefruit bitterness to kind of have that be the character of the finish. The hop flavor may be present, but it's obscured by the grapefruit. If it's citrus hop flavor, it's going to be just lost in the citrus grapefruit. So I give that 14 out of 20 for flavor. Mouthfeel, 4 out of 5. Body's medium. There's no warming. It's creamy, not astringent. Those are all perfectly fine. The carbonation is lower than I would have liked, which is not uncommon for a bottled homebrew that gets judged. So 4 out of 5. Overall impression is an 8. The grapefruit's really pleasant. It's dominant, but without making this grapefruit water. I go through and talk about how the grapefruit's dominant in every character, but it's not like drinking one of those White Claw seltzer things where all you get is carbonation and fruit and nothing else. So I thought it was really well done. The fruit character is really fresh. So I'll be curious to find out, did you take actual actual grapefruit fruits and cut these up and zest them or something, or how the grapefruit flavor got in. Overall, gave this 37 out of 50. Thought it was really well done. Definitely falls in the very good to excellent boundary. And I liked it a lot, and I'm going to have a little more in this glass while you tell us about how you made this beer.
Okay, well, this was a Pico batch, and I did in the malts. It had a raw 2-row. So this is a 3-gallon batch. 5 pounds of raw 2-row, 1.5 pounds of German Vienna, a half a pound of cane sugar, and a 1/4 pound of American Crystal 40.
Why the cane sugar, out of curiosity?
Well, this was intended to be an IPA, so.
Okay. So you wanted to dry it out a little bit.
Yeah. It was based on a session IPA I made on my Pico brew, and I just upped everything a little bit on that, and I added a little crystal because I was using Vienna, but sometimes I like a little bit of that classic kind of crystal flavor in there, but I went really light with it just to blend in with some of the other flavors. The hops used in it were basically all Whirlpool hops, an ounce of Mosaic, an ounce of Citra, and I have to go to my Dropbox to see the rest.
And now that you say Mosaic, I kind of picked that out now.
Yeah, it's
definitely taste the Mosaic now that you say that's
Mosaic,
there.
Citra and Idaho 7, and I use the Citra Cryo hops. So 1 ounce.
Yeah, the Idaho 7. It's interesting how close how complementary the Mosaic and the Idaho 7 are to the grapefruit pith. I think that's partly what I was perceiving as the pith.
Yeah, when you're talking about the pith, I'm like, oh, he's getting that hoppiness.
Yeah, and it's also an example of how malleable your sense of taste can be when you actually hear what stuff is. But yeah, that Mosaic has that kind of that kind of pith type flavor sometimes. And Idaho 7, I see that definitely being in that family.
Okay. What else?
But here's the thing: it didn't taste like an IPA when it came out. It was just like,
yeah.
okay, the hops fell flat.
Well, they blended with the fruit too well.
True. Yeah. Well,
They didn't stand out like, hey, it's an IPA.
it didn't.
Yeah.
It was too good of a blend with the grapefruit.
You
I
did
think.
too good, Brian. You did too good of a job.
I pitched it with the WLP 90, the San Diego Super Yeast,
Okay.
and the White Labs Pure Pitch with no starter, but in a 3-gallon batch. I figured it'd be fine.
Yeah.
Pitched it in the middle of the night after brewing, probably after having a few too many beers, but and I had no activity by the next evening. And I swirled the keg. And
Well, you're married.
I
It
still had
happens.
very little activity. So I the next day I pitched a pack of the BRY 97 American West Coast yeast.
The Bry 97?
And finally, Bry.
Brian.
Fermentation kicked off about 24 hours later. I think I brewed on a Sunday evening. It kicked off by Tuesday evening. I'm like, didn't have high hopes for this beer. I tasted on, about a month after I brewed it, and had transferred it, and it was just not hoppy at all. It was just like
Weird.
it was just odd, weird. I thought I got a little phenolic in it.
What did you do? I mean, do you really
Like-
think it's just the fruit sort of
Like-
overpowered it?
So- There's no fruit yet. I'm tasting it as an IPA. I'm like, what am I
Oh,
going to
you
do
haven't
with
put
this?
any grapefruit
Oh.
in yet. Okay.
What am I going to do with
Okay.
this beer?
And
And
what do you think happened?
it just, I don't know. The hops just
Okay.
didn't come through the way
Okay.
I wanted them to.
Okay.
It can happen.
So you think it's a recipe issue, not that you
Yeah,
forgot
I
a
probably
thing
should
or
have just
something?
dry hopped it more, or
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Sorry. Go ahead.
anyway. Or dry hopped it at all. I think I just,
Right.
I just did Whirlpool. Yeah, my notes just say Whirlpool hops, and that's all I did.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm a very lazy brewer.
Yeah, man.
Me
And
too,
in
man.
spite of all these great lengths we tell people to go to make the best beer, do a triple decoction on that thing to get it right. And then, you should just make a big yeast starter and, decant it and cool it and do all these things. Yeah, no.
And yet, what happened
So
when you didn't make a yeast starter, Brian?
I was, we were preparing for beer camp, which we call NCHF, the Northern California Homebrewers Festival. I wanted another beer to bring. It didn't actually end up being served there, which is kind of nice because I still have it, and it's pretty enjoyable the way it is now. And I'm looking at around. I'm like, what am I going to do with this? It's not hoppy enough. It's not an IPA. It's got a little bit of an odd flavor to it to me. And we had been to HomebrewCon, and my buddy Jeff and I had been running around and gathering samples of things in the little area where they have all the vendors. What is it called? But
That's so unusual for you to grab like little samples of everything to put together in a
I think there was
thing for
some
later on.
a hard cider or something, or a hard seltzer they had, and we went around the corner was the Amaretti booth.
Okay. Yeah.
And we spiked the seltzers with all these different flavors. I'm like, these flavors are pretty good. And they were giving away tons of. Everybody got a sample of the grapefruit, and then in the end they had a bunch of that left over. These little craft puree grapefruit extract Amaretti, and it smells good. And when we tested it, it mixed well with seltzers, and
Nice.
if you put it in any beers, but. Yeah, just the size of the bottle was geared for about 2.5 gallons of beer. I had a 3-gallon batch. I'm like, hey, that's perfect. So I just, winging a prayer, dumped it in and tasted. I was like, hey, it's big grapefruit flavor, but it tastes, it doesn't scream artificial grapefruit to me. I mean, I can tell that it's got a little kind of candy-like quality to it myself.
For me, the flavor that I get is like the Flintstones vitamin flavor. So it's a little chalky, a little like artificially sweet like that. I don't know if they put any sweetener in or not, but
I think there is some sugar in there. But yeah, talk about a little bit of a cheat, but it's just like I made a beer that kind of was falling flat into something that's drinkable and fun.
Yeah.
And
it came across really natural and fresh fruit to me, which is really fascinating.
They do a pretty good job, those guys.
Yeah,
I would use those extracts again. It's.
I wonder if it's too much. Like it does have good grapefruit flavor and that like classic grapefruit thing, but
Yeah.
I think everything else in that extract, I think it might be just a little too much,
Yeah,
and so you get some of that vitamin chalky
If
thing.
I had to do it again, I would definitely back off on the grapefruit a bit.
Yeah.
Can you pour me a little bit of that? I've
Yeah,
also
a little
enjoyed
grapefruit back off would be probably a good idea.
when
Yeah, I think so too.
when I'm able to. I'm like, what would this taste like as an IPA? So I mixed it with some Altamont Maui Wowie from my kegerator,
Mm-hmm.
and it was good.
It's good. Okay.
Because I'm going to mix it with some of this Danville Brewing Nelson IPL, and we're
Yeah.
going to see what happens here.
Yeah, because I think you can get those grapefruity hops, and you can use this for like an accentuation of that. You know.
So now it tastes like a grapefruit IPA, even though it's an IPL. I mixed with it. It's a
Right.
little less.
That's a daring choice on the
It's
air
still
live.
plenty
Brian.
fruity,
That's,
but-
I just want to point out that I'm an amazing. I'm amazing. I can't write it down, but man, I have the great ideas.
Thank you.
I
welcome.
give Brian extra marks for his performance review right now.
That's right.
But it's a good blending beer. But yeah, I would definitely back off on the grapefruit extract. I would probably use that much in a 5-gallon batch and start there, and maybe go up from
Yes.
there.
For sure, because you can always kind of add that
Because when you
stuff.
taste the ones that are more balanced, they've got a lot less grapefruit in them. When it's an IPA balanced with the grapefruit, because otherwise you just can't taste the hops.
Right.
At this point, the hops weren't there. I just blended it to make something drinkable, and I'm like, well, I'll call it a blonde because the hops weren't there to start with. And granted, it's probably 6.5%. It was like a 1060 starting gravity, which is a little high for a blonde ale, but not too noticeable under all that fruit. So
Yeah.
fun beer.
I'm leaning toward you retaining your admitting privileges for admitting homebrews to the hospital here, Brian.
Okay,
Well,
where are we going next?
We got one beer left, though, so hold on to that.
Yeah, hold
hold
on
on to
here.
that assessment, Brian.
The leaning toward, yes. So if you haven't heard me talk enough, let me talk some more about Brian's American Strong, Category 22B. This was an interesting beer. Aroma, low hop aroma overall, kind of low aroma in general. It got a piney character. I'm going to guess Chinook, and I'll be curious later to hear about your recipe. For a strong ale, I was surprised not to get any alcohol in the nose. I did get like a low pumpkin squash kind of acetaldehyde from this. So I gave this 7 for aroma. Appearance, 3 out of 3, dark copper in color. There's a slight haze, which is okay for this style. It was not enough of a haze to make me knock this down a point. Head is large, tan, and persistent. Flavor is initially kind of a muddled malt character. It's a little pumpkin / acetaldehyde. Piney hop flavor comes up mid palate. Alcohol, which wasn't really noticeable in the aroma, is definitely present in the finish at a low medium level. Finish is long. It's bitter and kind of balanced with the malt, but it's maybe balanced a little toward bitterness. Surprisingly, the flavor overall I thought was kind of low. There's a lot going on in this beer, and its flavor. There's stuff here, but when I just sip this, the flavor intensity on a scale of 1 to 3 is like a 1. Which is kind of bizarre, but sometimes you get beers like that. It's nothing wrong with it. It's not bad. It's just the flavor intensity is not real high. It's well attenuated, which is good for a strong beer. That can be a difficult challenge. I gave this 11 out of 20 for flavor. Mouthfeel, there's definitely low warming at first. As I continued drinking the sample, the warming went up to medium. Body's medium. It's really more creamy than perky or astringent. Carbonation is low. And I knocked off a point for carbonation. I do that to myself. It's not like all of us don't have problems with carbonation when we bottle homebrew.
True.
So this is 4 out of 5 for mouthfeel. Overall impression, I gave it a 6. Overall, it's a pleasant beer. It's low in flavor, despite the fact there's alcohol and clearly a lot of fermentables in here. And maybe additional malt complexity. This is kind of the paradox of attenuation, right? You want a well-attenuated beer, but sometimes it's so well-attenuated, I think it attenuates the flavor away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe an additional complexity. You can't assume this was a grain, a full
All grain.
All grain.
Yeah.
How come I
It would
can't
take
think of the word all
it would take a
grain.
homebrew to explain. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's fine,
exactly.
yeah.
Sometimes, but it's whether you're brewing all grain or extract, maybe a little more malt complexity with additional extract or grain would be nice, and it might help it. Add a little more flavor.
Okay.
Still, it's a good beer. I gave it a 31 out of 50. Maybe there's a little, maybe a hint of acetaldehyde, and that might just be me. There's something a little odd about the flavor and the aroma.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of leaning toward it being acetaldehyde, but it's really kind of tricky. I'm having a difficult time thinking about what specifically it is, and I'm leaning toward that slight pumpkin character, but I might be talking myself into it.
No,
I
think you're right.
Yeah, it's definitely there. It's a little green apple, but it's also a little underripe, kind of squashy thing. And I don't know what
green apple.
I don't know what it's from. But
Pumpkin skin. It's from a very sluggish fermentation.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I definitely get now that you say green apple, that's like, that's not
'Cause
green
it's on the
apple
tart
like a Granny
side.
Smith, but
No.
green apple like you. This is underripe from the backyard. I don't want to eat this.
Yeah.
So, Brian, tell us about your recipe and your fermentation.
So we can replicate it.
It sounds like it was sluggish,
So
like you were just saying.
I really didn't want to bring this on the show because I need to do this. I need to do this properly another time.
I know. I should have brought my shitty beer instead, but it was stuck in my
That's
keg.
okay. No, that's okay. So this was my first attempt, and I did a few things wrong. I think in that I ordered some pico packs of my own beer, the Kick Your Own Ass Ale, and I did. They sent me one for free just because it's my recipe, and it sat around for a long while, and then I decided to order another one, and the first one I stored the yeast and it was in the fridge for a long time. On the second one, I was lazy and I left it in the box until I got around to brewing it. And I'm like, oh, I never put that yeast in the fridge or the hops in the freezer because the first one I separated all that stuff out meticulously and did that. But it's definitely got some acetaldehyde. So I just pitched in the yeast, one of them that had been in the fridge for a long time and one that had been sitting at room temperature for God knows how long.
Mm-hmm.
And neither one of them, I did two, 1.5 gallon batches side by side because I wanted to get at least a half a keg out of this thing. So that's why I bought the second one. But, it's so, just buying the Pico pack and doing, the Pico Z makes good wort.
Yeah.
But if you don't take care of that wort, it's not going to give you good beer.
Right.
Certainly
It's like anything else.
And that's all on me. That is all on me. And this is my own recipe we're talking about. So I'm slightly embarrassed even just talking about it.
Well, you should be, to be
I
completely
was
honest.
guessing this might be Kick Your Own Ass
Yeah.
Ale that went wrong.
So it is Chinook hops. And
Ooh, I got the Chinook hops right.
yeah.
It did smell and taste piney.
So this is supposed to be a bold, arrogant brew with rich malt notes, grapefruit and pine aroma, and a dry finish with firm alcohol throughout. American
bastard.
Strong Ale, target specs are ABV at 7.9. It has 2-row crystal malt and flaked oats, and only Chinook hops in it. SRM around 14, IBUs around 86. Actually, so the beer did not ferment well, and I have hopes of rescuing it. I have hopes of doing like a croisening, even though it's carbonated now. I want to pull the carbonation out and Actually, I just want to start over and do it again sometime. So
We'll do
this
it.
was a failed experiment, and I'm sorry.
Go home right now. You have our permission to leave the show early.
Subtract 5 points from the score, and please just love it. But the odd thing to me is I agree with the tasting notes that it does taste dry, and it has that odd pumpkin skin thing to it.
Yeah.
But the actual finishing gravity on this was at 1020. It finished at
Really?
1020.
Wow.
So it only
That's
got to
much higher
and that's
than I
why
would have expected.
it's not as much alcohol as you would get. Otherwise, it's like barely 7, where it should be around 8. But it's it's just
Still get some
it's not
warming
quite,
from this.
Quite there where it is. There
Yeah.
there is some warming. I would feel like wow, it should be much sweeter than it is. But there's something. I think that and I brewed it with distilled water as they recommend for those, and the mineraliness that they use in there to, give that dry mouthfeel is working overtime maybe to double up and make it something that tastes dry even though it actually isn't. So like because I taste the same thing you do. If I put this in a hydrometer, I'm sure it would still say maybe it. Because I mixed the 2 batches, maybe it adjusted a little bit and dried out a little more. I'm not sure, but it's been chilled most of the time, so I don't think it's dried out anymore or had more
Yeah,
time to
probably
ferment.
not. No.
I left it
Bless
out
you.
to try to clean out some of that green apple and but so I have plans for doing this again, and I'll bring a true test. This is not the true test, so please don't advertise this as kick your own ass ale. I'm gonna lose my good reputation and lose my credentials as a doctor of homebrew with this.
All right, Brian,
That's right.
as long as you can guarantee me some good tea times for the next calendar year,
Yeah.
I'm inclined to recommend that you retain your homebrew admitting privileges at the hospital here.
I'll bring the grapefruit ale, buddy.
All right, sounds good.
All right, everybody, hang tight real fast.
Yep.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to try this Over the Moon Milk Stout from Guinness in Beemore, in Balmore. The homies representing flat build caps, Timberlands, gray sweatpants.
Yo,
We're all
what's
about
up?
it. We'll be right back.
Are you a member of the White Labs Customer Club? If not, you should be.
I'm sorry to tell you this, but we're going to have to pour you out.
Back to Dr. Homebrew.
All right, everybody, thanks for sticking around. I'm about to tear into this pack. I feel like it's Christmas because it's a brand
It
new
is Christmas.
beer from Guinness that I am excited to drink. It's a brand new beer. How many times do you get like one of your favorite beers to release a brand new beer, especially?
Does that have a
I love Guinness,
canned
man.
on date?
Well, so here's the date code, man. And I was trying to look it up. I don't understand it. It's 754-862-1129-3482, and then the second line is L9241T20021017. 0017.
That's the star date, and the second one is the globular cluster where that was brewed, so that's just from the future. That's okay.
Okay. I got a globule cluster.
Hmm.
I have to get it removed.
You know, while you're opening that up, I want to talk briefly, talking about beers from larger breweries that you like. Sierra Nevada Narwhal. I have a 6-pack in my fridge I got the other day. The first one, Imperial Stout from them. Oh, my God, that is so amazing and so well attenuated and just so tasty. It's nice. It's a seasonal release. They don't make a lot of it. It's always nice when it comes out.
Here.
Jason is smelling the milk stout from the
Smell
can.
the can. So there is a date on the bottom.
Brewed in Baltimore.
Yeah, now I want to find out why you guys talk about it. L924, dude.
L7.
1T2002. Let's go, boys.
Okay.
I don't know. It smells good, right? What do you think?
It does
Aroma's
smell
kind
good.
of low overall, but it smells good. I like it.
Canned 9/29/19. So it's pretty fresh for something like this, man.
Yeah, just 2 months old for making it all the way across the country.
And I think for a milk stout, that's fine, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. This is not like a hop. It's the hop forward styles that really don't travel that well, and especially the hazies.
Yeah.
Darker beers that aren't so hop forward can last for a while, especially if they're cared for in transit.
I like this beer.
This has more roasted grain aroma than like coffee or chocolate, really, to me. There's a little bit of cocoa, like kind of, bitter cocoa and roast in the nose.
Yeah, I get kind of that dark chocolate, bitter cacao, cocoa sort of, like the baking chocolate.
There's a hint of some sweetness in it, but it's not very fruity.
No.
It's clean. No baddies, no diacetyl.
What's the number on this, Brian? I know you have it. You're like the BJCP dictionary.
The number?
Yeah.
What, starting gravity?
No, the category.
Oh, a 16A.
16A.
Sweet stout.
Oh, dark British beer, sweet stout. Yeah.
So yeah, and most of the names in the commercial examples are like Left Hand Milk Stout, Mackeson's Triple X Stout, Samuel Adams Cream Stout, those, Bristol Beer Factory Milk Stout.
Can suggest coffee and cream or sweetened espresso.
That's the essence
for sure.
of the beer. So the overall impression of very dark, sweet, full-bodied, slightly roasty ale that can suggest coffee and cream or sweetened espresso.
This is on the low end of sweetness for me in terms of milk stouts I've had or brewed.
Is it really?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not getting a ton of sweetness in this.
I would call it like at least medium, if not medium high. Yeah.
Maybe because of this other beer I've been drinking, maybe it's affecting my palate.
Maybe I've been sandpapering my tongues. I don't really.
Yeah, I've been licking cat tongues to be sure to get my tongue toughened up here.
I love that.
But no, it's good. I'm not getting a giant. It's not an overwhelming. Sometimes you have a milk stout and it's like, oh God, this is just the sweetness is overpowering.
Yes.
And I guess my point is this is not on that end of the spectrum. This is more on the restrained end of the spectrum. And I like it. I think it's really, it's balanced.
Do you want to go through the thing or you want me to do it, Brian?
Sure.
All right. So in the aroma, you should be getting mild roasted grain, sometimes with coffee and or chocolate notes. An impression of cream-like sweetness often exists. Fruitiness can be low to moderately high. Diacetyl low to none. Hop aroma low to none with floral or earthy notes. Maybe there's a little fruitiness because I think that Guinness yeast profile is there. Like when you try it, it's distinctively a Guinness.
Yeah.
It's distinctively a Guinness beer. And so I think it does have some of those maybe red apple fruitiness things to it.
They make really dry, stouts. So,
definitely cream-like sweetness. If you're talking fruitiness, like maybe like a red apple, then yeah, for sure. Diacetyl low to none, absolutely. Hop aroma low to none. I don't get any hops in this aroma at all.
Well, I'm getting a little earthiness in it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
It's got like maybe some fuggles or something that's giving it that like it's not a hoppy beer by any stretch, but
no.
There's
Floral or earthy notes.
Earthy balance to it.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Yeah, it does have that. It doesn't smell like standard Guinness draft, but there is that hint of when you kind of really think about it, it's a flavor that's in that family.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's like you're saying, it's probably the yeast.
I would think so.
Or it might be some similarity in malt profile. But what's also interesting to me is this is a beer that's definitely lighter in color. It's more because Guinness is Guinness is black.
This is not black.
This is a dark
Reddish,
brown. It's
dark
not even
brown.
the darkest brown you could have. There's definitely the ability to see through it and not just like at the edges like a Guinness might have. This is more of even more of a medium dark brown than a dark brown. You know what I mean?
It's very clear too. It just has those.
It is very clear.
Kind of mahogany highlights and.
Appearance
garnet.
should be very dark brown to black in color. Can be opaque. If not, it should be clear, creamy tan to brown head. Which I think it's a lighter tan, lighter to medium tan on the head for sure.
But it's a creamy looking head.
Yeah.
I get more sweetness in the flavor as I drink more of this and kind of go away from the one I've been drinking. So that was, sorry Guinness, my palate was kind of blown out by the my show beer here.
Arthur Guinness is rolling in his
Guinness
tomb.
is slapping. Boy, mate, I'm not even going to try to be Irish. Sorry, all of our Irish and UK listeners. I apologize for that sound I just made.
They let this be brewed in Baltimore?
No.
What?
That's a bigger offense.
No, that's what he would say.
Flavor should be dark roasted grain malt impression with coffee and or chocolate flavors dominating the palate. Hop bitterness is moderate. Medium to high sweetness provides a counterpoint to the roasted character and hop bitterness and lasts into the finish. Low to moderate fruity esters, diacetyl low to none. The balance between dark grains, malts, and sweetness can vary from quite sweet to moderately dry and somewhat roasty. There's kind of a lot to unpack in the flavor category
It's a
on this
good
thing.
range, yeah.
There really is. And I think, to me, that's a long-winded way of saying it can be pretty much any stout but American. American's
Right.
like really, really hoppy and bitter.
Yeah.
As long as you throw some lactose in there. Like any British stout style or
Mhm.
range, toss some lactose in that, then you got a sweet stout.
Yeah.
So again, you go back to the nose. It's like mild roasted grain aroma, and it does have that. And the flavor is also, it's not a sharp roast. It's
Mhm.
a really mild roasted grain
Yes.
flavor. And to me, I want to say something about this beer, and it might sound weird, but to me, it tastes like Baltic Porter light. You know, like those like Polish Baltic porters that have that hint of sweetness, and then it
Yeah.
has that really mild dark malt character alongside some sweetness and not super fruity character, because some can be lagered, but it's like a Baltic porter almost, this one.
That's a really good point. And I'm fortunate that one of my friends in my homebrew club is from Poland, and he will periodically, when he goes home, he'll bring back like Polish, Lithuanian like porters and stuff for us to try as a club.
However you say it. Yeah.
And now that you've said that, it's like, there's a lot of this is like some of the variants of like a Baltica or something like that. That's maybe just a lighter version that
It's the
isn't
5.3
as
alcohol.
big.
Yeah.
Excellent observation, Brian.
I just kept tasting. I was like, what is that? It's like, it tastes like
It's familiar, but
Baltic Porter light.
yeah. Mouthfeel, medium full to full bodied and creamy. Yeah, I mean, it has that, that's for sure. A low to moderate carbonation. Yeah. High residual sweetness from unfermented sugars enhances the full tasting mouthfeel. Can you have a full tasting mouthfeel? Does the mouthfeel have a taste?
I would argue with that.
It's a feel. The feel's in the name. It's not mouth taste.
full.
And again, this is one of those things. The BJCP is like, flavor, and you go take the exam. The flavor and the mouthfeel are different. You're right. The tasting is a flavor, and the mouthfeel is a feel.
Yeah.
We can nitpick that. I mean, the full mouthfeel complements the taste, so they're just trying to explain how that works together.
Yeah.
Probably. So
I'm sure Gordon is fixing that for the 2020 revision if there is going to be such a thing.
I mean, it's very full bodied, very creamy. I mean, that's hits the nail right on the head. Comments: gravities are low in England, higher in exported and U.S. product. Variations exist with the level of residual sweetness, the intensity of the roast character, and the balance between the two being the variables most subject to interpretation. That's pretty true.
Yeah.
Some versions in England are very sweet and low attenuation, and also low in ABV, like Tennant's Sweetheart Stout is 2%. I love low alcohol beers, but I don't know if I would drink a 2% milk stout, man. I don't think I could do it.
I don't know. It's so
Because
weird.
it's just
I
like
might
sugar
do it.
water. I mean, I would try it, but it wouldn't be. You know what I need to do is take a walk down to the pub for a 2%er.
at least get to 3.
Right?
You know what this show is reminding me of is the time that I went to the river when I lived in L.A., like in the early 90s.
To score heroin?
Score heroin, of course. Out to the Colorado, and we went with some friends, and the rule was a case a man because it's so hot. You got to bring a case per day.
Yeah.
And for some reason, at the Safeway in Huntington Beach, I could get cases of Mackeson sweet stout. And I went to the river with like 2 cases of Mackeson, and I drank.
Jesus.
I drank 2 frickin' cases of Mackeson, and as I remember, I might have gotten at least a case and a half deep in that over like the course of the weekend.
I don't know. I couldn't. That's a lot of sweet
that
stuff.
was a damn fine weekend. I think I slept on a picnic table.
Let's see. Some versions in England are sweet, but it's an outlier compared to the other examples. These guidelines mostly describe the higher gravity, more balanced export versions rather than low alcohol, very sweet versions that many find quite difficult to drink. So that's sort of a good point. This is a 5.3% beer.
Yes.
It's brewed by an Irish brewery in America. Is it trying to be an export? Is it trying to be a domestic? For UK purposes, it's low alcohol. It's not hard to drink. It's actually very easy to drink. But like Brian says, it's sort of on the edge of this is very sweet. So I don't know.
It's middle of the road for alcohol strength. It's 5-ish.
Yeah.
It's not. It can go up to 6. So.
Oh my God,
down to 2 or 4, but the 2 is an outlier. What I would like more in this though is more of a coffee and cream impression.
Yeah.
Espresso.
More of a cream than coffee, I think. Oh, actually,
It's.
espresso? Yeah.
I would like a little, like warm, smooth espresso in this, and it's kind of lacking.
Yeah, agreed.
But not a bad attempt at the style. It is smooth and it's sweet. So as advertised, you could drink a lot of this on a nice fall day. It is still fall, right?
Or down in
Yeah.
the van by the river.
IBUs,
You want to hear some good trivia, Brian?
Hang on. IBUs torque 20 to 40. OG is 1044 to 1060. Final gravities are 1012 to 1024. ABV 4 to 6. SRM 30 to 40.
Yeah. But yeah, boy, for such a low starting gravity beer, like 1012 to 1024, that's
Yeah.
it can get pretty sweet. And I would guess this one's on the lower end for final gravity. too.
Yeah, because there's a dryness to
Kind
it,
of
but
medium sweet with
yeah.
some dryness underneath, and it can lean that direction.
I like it. I think it's good.
Fun. It is.
I like it
good.
too.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I would go buy a 6-pack of it, but I like what I'm drinking. I'm enjoying it.
yeah,
I
I'd
might
give
drink a
this
6-pack of this.
Mid
Yeah.
to upper 30s score wise.
Yeah, I agree. This is like a 30.
clean.
I'd give us a 35.
Yeah, 36,
Yeah,
37.
yeah, I would do
It's clean.
37 because it is pretty standard as far as, I mean, the descriptions, it's sort of right down the middle. It's definitely not a 40.
No.
I'll tell you that.
That's true. That's
it's a
true.
beer that is also not gonna. You want to drink it now. If you find
Yeah.
it, drink it fresh and don't let it sit and age forever. 'cause
Yes,
it's
might be
only
a
gonna go
37.
downhill.
Well, so here's a question: what would you do to bump the score? What would you suggest if this was a homebrew and someone sent this in? How would we say? Here's how you can make it a 45 because you're not going to make it a 50.
I would like a little more. So it's got a little bit of the cream, but I would add more lactose and I would add more roasts just to get that coffee and cream, like it's the double-edged sword. Boom! Like this is a little coffee and a little
Yeah.
cream and a little sweetness, and it's kind of it's
Yeah.
okay.
You would do more
little
lactose.
little more roast, little more lactose. I would definitely have more lactose.
I would have. I would up the roast. I think you guys. I agree with you guys because
That's the first thing. Yeah.
and maybe even like pale chocolate. Not even like some of the
Right.
funkier. I would
Yeah.
go maybe
No,
some
totally
pale chocolate in
agree.
there.
or even just regular chocolate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
chocolate is a good call.
Yeah, and then leave the lactose because for me
Yeah.
it's on that. For me it's on the edge of this is almost too sweet. Like you said, I don't know if I would
Yeah.
rush out and buy another 6-pack of this, but I'll drink this over the course of like an hour. No, like a week maybe. You know.
Well, the added chocolate
Yeah.
or roast will stand up to like maybe 25% more lactose. I don't mean like double the lactose.
No, yeah.
I mean
for
like
sure
bump
not.
it up like a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a lot. Maybe eighth or even an eighth. And I think that the balance then is more like having a creamy espresso.
'Cause I can kind of tell when you taste a beer that has that residual milk sugar in it that does not ferment out, you really taste it, and it's.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's hitting that edge, and it might be sweet from the other dextrins and stuff that are left in it, but it's not that lactose sweetness that you get that cream-like impression.
Yeah.
Milk stout.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's a good beer. I think they did a great job with it. But
Oh yeah.
I've had other ones that I like the balance a little bit better on. So there's always room for improvement. But
That's true.
it's a very drinkable beer. You could sip a lot of this.
Well, if you find it out in the wild, grab some.
Yeah.
It's very good.
recommend it.
And you know what? Drinking an Irish beer, Brian, our name, Brian, is Irish.
Okay.
It's of Irish descent.
There you go. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in to Dr. Homebrew. This is the last episode of 2019.
What?
The next time you'll hear our voices, provided you don't go back in time, is in the brand new year, the brand new decade, 2020.
If I'm allowed to keep my credentials here.
No,
You
we'll-
are going to
we'll
be
find
allowed,
out.
my friend. And
For the remainder
here's
of
to
the
coming
year.
at you in the
Yeah.
20s.
That's right. Thank you very much. While we have a brief second here before the song pushes me out.
Are the flappers going to come back? Will we have?
Yes,
That's
yes,
right.
they will.
Thank you very much, everybody,
Beverly?
for listening to the show. You guys supporting the show, sending beers in to Brian at thebrewingnetwork.com, I think is it. Anyway, you guys keep the show afloat. We really appreciate it very much. Without you, there would be no show. So thank you first and foremost to everybody who listens.
Please let's not have
appreciate it.
ever another show where my beer is the only homebrews on it.
I'm going to fix my keg.
Do that. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next year.
No.